Hi, I'm Alex, and on this episode, I'm going to clean up my kitchen 4 consecutive days in a row. This is after my kids have returned to school, so there may be a bit of a backlog of kitchen stuff, but this is actually one day of dishes. And as you see in the following video, in the following days, there is not there is still a lot of dishes. The one thing I do manage to do here eventually is clean off the kitchen table, which has been driving me crazy because it just got so cluttered with random objects that need to be put in a place or thrown out or dealt with in some way. So that was like really annoying me all summer, just not being able to get to the kind of more deeper decluttering or organizing tasks, but it's not like I couldn't. I just didn't. And uh, that kind of ties into what I'm going to be talking about and the ability or the inability to do things. Like, we all know what we need to do to keep stuff under control. Whether or not we do it, is another question. And so, what are those stumbling blocks? What are those roadblocks? At some point recently, I went for a few hours just really being conscious of what I was doing while I was sort of like trying to put stuff away and like tidy up. And I found myself consistently taking stuff to put it back where it goes, but instead of putting it all the way back where it goes, I would put it towards the area where it goes. And even being fully conscious of this, I was like, this is painful. Like a spool of thread or something like that. I would go put it with the intention of putting it in the box where the other spools of thread are. I would put it next to the box, or I would put it on the shelf, like right under the box, because somehow those 2 seconds of taking the box down, opening the lid, putting the thread inside, and putting the box back felt like I felt like Mount Everest, and I just could not do it. And that sort of reminds me of I had this episode with my kid who is in first grade, and he does not want to do homework, but it's really basic stuff and he knows how to do it. It's just to get him used to doing something. Like, I'm not concerned about the homework, but it's just getting in the routine. Like, at least for 15 minutes, at least like 3 or 4 days a week, like just to get used to it so that maybe like later when it becomes more important to do like at home projects or essays or whatever, so that he has that background of doing it, getting used to like sitting down, focusing on something that's school related, whatever. Not a big stickler for grades because I think people learn in all kinds of different ways, but there is a certain amount of discipline that should be cultivated just to be able to do something you don't want to do. The lesson is do stuff you don't want to do at home because life's unfair. So, okay, so back to okay, so I was trying to get him to do his work, and he did a couple of problems, and it was just like pulling teeth, or it was miserable. But then he just said, I can't, and that was it. It was like, I cannot, and laying on the floor, and I can't, and this is the end of the road, and I can't. And I tried so many things. Like, okay, at school, they've even given him this special privilege with a timer to do work for like 5 minutes and then take a rest and play with a toy for like, I don't know, however long. So I was like, okay, do you want to do the thing they do at school where you can work and then get a little reward? Do you want, okay, I tried like, well, maybe I can't get you ice cream after dinner, or maybe I can't take you to the park, which obviously I'm going to take him to the park regardless, but, and I know that people have all kinds of different strategies for like incentivizing kids or strategies that they think are inappropriate, but whatever. I'm drowning in this, trying to navigate like a resistant child. So he can't. So I'm thinking, I'm just connecting the dots like right now as I speak. I cannot put that spool of thread all the way into that box. And I felt like with some kind of threat of bodily harm, I still would not be able to do it. I don't know why. So I get it. I understand. I don't understand why, but I understand why my kid did that with his homework, where he just says, I can't, and that's it. I wish I knew how to get over that. And, later that night, he did end up doing homework with his dad and he finished all of it. And it's super easy. He knows how to do it. It's just that he can't. And I kind of get it. I wish I had more tools for myself as well as for him. So when people say, like, oh, people are just lazy and why don't you just do this? Like, because you can't. And the can't is almost like outside of yourself. So I think that it's important to acknowledge that, not as an excuse, but as a way to plan to come up with other strategies for when you can't. And for myself, with putting stuff away and not putting it all the way away or whatever, is like, I think of it like defrag on a computer. So if you remember, defragging the computer used to be a thing where you would give the computer this task so it would make files congruent. And the reason you'd have to do that was because if a computer shuts down unexpectedly or just for whatever reason, it will, let's say you have like a file open, it will shove that file somewhere on the hard drive, like the fastest place it could find, like the place right next to where the hard drive needle is, or however it works. I have no idea. So it would be writing that file as it's like quitting, and then it would run out of space, so it would stick the second half of the file at another random place. And then when you go to retrieve that file, it would go to like different places to get that file back together. And that, even though it causes like a millisecond delay that we don't notice when all of your files are like that, then it makes your computer kind of laggy. So you could run this maintenance defrag to put all the pieces of the files on like the same place on the hard drive, because while the computer is working, it like just doesn't have like the capacity to figure out which part of the hard drive has enough space for this file and go put it all there, so that later it makes it easier, whatever easier means for a computer, like a nanosecond, to get that file and to open it up or whatever you need to do with it. And, thinking about it that way kind of made me feel better about myself, because I need to defrag. And as much as I want to say, like, clean up as you go, why don't you take that all the way to the place where it needs to go? For whatever reason, the bandwidth for me to do that doesn't exist. on an average day. Once in a while, I have a stellar day where I could say, yes, this thing is going all the way into the box where it goes. And remember that old forgotten thing that I need to do to make this other thing go? Like, I will take care of that and actually eliminate the problem, or like go through the paperwork or whatever it is. But usually on the average day, the paperwork just goes into like a general place. Things that really need to get taken care of go in the fridge. Things that are general whatever go in the general whatever area. And then I have to defrag at a certain time when inspiration strikes or whatever it is. There is a time and a place to go and deal with those bits and pieces that didn't quite make it to their final destination or their final. So I think in the end, people just need better strategies for those times when they are completely unable to do something, because it can be very disempowering to say, to hear like the chorus in your mind, or your relatives or your teacher or whoever it is, to say like, but you should be able to do this, this is easy, why can't you do it? And that's what I found myself doing with my kid, is like, why can't you just do this? I know you know how to do this, but he couldn't do it. So what use is it to say that you can when you can't? And so what else can be done? Like, what other strategies can be implemented for what you can do, but you can't even get to those strategies in the disempowerment of the can't moment. So, what is the ultimate solution? I believe that to be radical self acceptance. And this has a lot to do with why I enjoy Dana K. White's content so much. Because even though she's never been like diagnosed as ADHD, a lot of people have pointed out that that's probably what she has, given the kinds of things that she struggles with. Oh, by the way, there are some stains here on this table that I will be soaking a little bit of paper with bleach, putting that on there, and after like 3 or 4 hours, it actually took the stain out. It's pretty cool. Anyway, back to Dana K. White. So I do tend to talk about her a lot because I love listening to her content, even though she says the same thing over and over again. There is just something so accepting about her understanding of other people's struggles, because she herself struggled so much. So she's not coming from a perspective of like, I managed to clean my house, why can't you, you dirty slob? She doesn't do that. In fact, her like she used to go by like anonymous Noni, and then her like website, whatever, is like a slob comes clean, which is pretty clever. So she knows like where she's come from and how it can be so overwhelming and disempowering to just not understand why you can't do these things when everybody else seems to have like figured it out and doesn't even like think about maintaining their house. It's just like, it's just clean. It's just like, you go to their house and it's always clean, and they're like, what do you mean? Like, I don't even clean in here, you know. Because they don't even think about it. They don't even think about it as like, it's just like getting a glass of water in the morning. You do your dishes whenever after a meal. Like, people just do it naturally, and some people don't do it naturally. And the fact that it has taken her so long to figure out strategies that work for her means that she's understanding of why some people just can't. So the other interesting thing about her was that as like a creative person who just wanted to write, she was very frustrated by the fact that anytime she would sit down to write, it felt like, well, her house was a mess, so how could she justify taking this time to write? And she had like small kids. And as a very religious person, she kind of gave it up to the higher power, to Jesus, to say, like, why? Why did you make me this way? Like, I am so flawed that I can't even share my gifts with the world because I can't get this, like, fundamental, basic thing down, which is my house. And the answer, ironically enough, came to her through writing about the struggle and being vulnerable about her own inability to get on top of house management. So, maintenance, whatever, cleanliness. And as she started to write about the thing that she thought was the biggest problem in her life, that became the most successful um, source of abundance, like for her family, and it gained her like notoriety in books. And I'm not saying she's super duper famous, but I think they have a very comfortable lifestyle, coming from essentially being like a stay-at-home mom to kind of blowing up with like courses and collaborations and books, so, and like podcasts, whatever, like YouTube. So I really think there's a really valuable lesson because it came from this place of radical self-acceptance. Like, I cannot do this thing, so I will turn this thing, like, I will not hide it, which I mean she did because she was anonymous for a while, but I will expose this hardship of mine, and through acknowledging it, um, it it will kind of radiate out and not only help myself but help other people. Her latest book is called Jesus Doesn't Care About Your Messy House or Your Messy Home. And it's the first book she's written that focuses on the spiritual side of cleaning. And I found that fascinating because I also focus on the spiritual side of cleaning, because I recognize that we have certain hangups and things that prevent us from doing things the way that we know logically we all should be capable of doing, yet for so many people it doesn't happen. So where are the blocks? Where are the subconscious limitations, limiting beliefs, etc.? A very simple example is like deserving. Do I fundamentally feel like I deserve a clean space? Am I worthy of that? It could also be tied to money and finances, a belief that only rich people get to have nice things. There's a limitless amount of limiting beliefs that can contribute to not getting the results you so desperately want. And I thought that Dana's book kind of touches on the idea that there can be components of self limitation. And in her book about Jesus, there is the desire to dissect why we place so much value on the state of our home, and how a lot of religious people have equated this like godliness is next to cleanliness idea, that it actually never appears in the words of Jesus. So removing that component of worthiness, like I am not worthy of love, or God love or Jesus or whatever, if I cannot do these basic maintenance things, which every single person in the world should do. And religious or not, this is a very valid point that a lot of people struggle with because they tie their self-worth into their ability to maintain a certain amount of order in their environment. And when that order is not maintained, it's very easy to be self deprecating in a way that even more prevents you from doing anything. So, when you could maybe do a crappy job and stop halfway through, you may not even do that. You may not even like bother picking up that napkin off the floor because why bother? I can't do anything. I can't maintain my house, so why bother with this little thing? And that could be sort of an easy surface one to spot, like what what beliefs do I have about the state of my home that are actually preventing it from getting any better or preventing me from finding a solution, maybe doing a half-ass job, maybe asking for help, right? Maybe it's a matter of it's already so horrible in here, I can't possibly ask for help. Or, like with a stay at home parent, it could be like, well, the other partner is taking care of all the other things, so I should be able to maintain this by myself because unless I am contributing financially, I don't feel worthy of needing help. I don't feel worthy of being helped. So, just examining those kinds of hangups, and I think that Dana's book does a good job of analyzing it from the religious perspective because there is so much like guilt and shame, and that guilt and shame can prevent people from neutralizing the weight of this like home task management stuff to the point where they're not even seeing where they could make an impact because of the general hangups of like this means that I am insert whatever, like lazy, unlovable, undeserving of help. And when we start to practice radical self acceptance, like she had to do, because she's known that her brain doesn't work like everybody else's, be it ADHD or whatever it is, she's had to say that that's okay and that's who I am and that's why I can be creative and artistic and that's why I can juggle so many other things. And the fact that I can't manage this one thing that other people seem to find simple and easy does not make me any less of a person or any less deserving of all of my heart's desires than anybody else. And that's sort of where that idea for all of her future work took hold, is finding strategies for her own individual struggles. All right, I'm going to leave it there for today. See you in the next one.